The live streaming is commenced now. Apologies all. We seem to have lost the mayor. We'll just wait until she logs back on.
Okay, guys, I don't know what happened then. We've got Gaetano now. Excellent. All right, thanks. I think we'll make a start. Thank you. Good evening, councillors, officers and members of the public. Our viewers are live streaming tonight's virtual planning committee I declare this meeting open at 6:41 p.m. My name is Councillor Julie Williams and I'm the Mayor of Darebin City Council and the chairpersons for tonight's meeting. It is my pleasure to welcome you to tonight's virtual planning committee meeting. This meeting is being live streamed and is being recorded and will be made available on the council website as soon as practical. I would like to start at acknowledging the Wurundjeri, the Warrawong people, the traditional owners of the land that we are here and gathered this evening, including those who are out in Canberra this evening at the Narrawong land that we are on today, and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. And we also like to recognise their continuing connection to their land, water and culture. Firstly, I'd like to just a few housekeeping matters that I'd like to pass on. Councillors, so if you can please leave your video on at all times, but please keep your microphone muted unless you need to speak. If you wish to speak, then raise your hand and I will allow you to turn your microphone on and then you can speak. Officers and members of the public attending this virtual meeting this evening, I kindly ask that you keep your cameras and microphones off until you have been asked to have your turn to speak. Note, there is no chat facility available during this meeting for councillors or general viewers. Should technical problems occur, we will adjourn the item and hopefully that we can get us back again once the technical issue has been resolved. If we can't resolve the technical issues or problems, then we will have to re-adjourn and reschedule the meeting for another practical time. This evening, I'd like to welcome our councillors who are gathered here this evening. I have Councillor Suzanne Newton, our Deputy Mayor. I have Councillor Emily Demetriadis, Councillor Gaetano Greco, Councillor Tom Hannon, Councillor Tim Lawrence, Councillor Trent McCarthy and Councillor Suzanne Rennie. I believe that we may have Councillor Messina as an apology this evening. I also would like to acknowledge our officers this evening. I've got Vanessa from General Manager City Sustainability and Strategy. I've got Catherine from Manager City and Development. I've got Neil from Assistant Manager and City Development, Matthew from Coordinator Statutory Planning, Joannis from Principal Planner, Beth from Senior Statutory Planner and Paul from Senior Statutory Planner. If there are no conflicts of interest, I'll move on to the next item. So I need to ask for a mover and a seconder in reference to our previous minutes, which occurred from our previous meeting. Last planning meeting was on the 8th of May. Do I have a mover for those items? Councillor Lawrence. And do I have a seconder? Councillor Rennie. I'll put that to vote. All those in favour? That has been carried unanimously. Thank you. Councillors, as this is occupational health and safety, we do have a responsibility that anyone attending tonight's meeting feels safe, both physically and emotionally. So I will be permitting councillors question time once the item comes up before we commence the debate. If I think that we've had enough question time, then I will ask for the debate to continue. I'll exercise my right under the governance rules to limit questions if need to be. I'll move over to the first item, which is consideration of reports. So the first item that we have this evening is the planning application for number 2 Abbott Street, Alphington. So I'll ask our officers if they would like to tell us a little bit more about that before we go over to question time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councillors. Good evening, everyone. This is an application in relation to 2 Abbott Street, Alphington, regarding the use of the site for the purposes of a materials recycling facility and associated buildings and works. The subject site is zoned Industrial 3 and located in an area of industrial uses, with the nearest residential areas approximately 70 meters to the east across the Darebin Creek and 50 meters south behind the properties along the southern side of Abbott Street. We received 16 objections to the proposal. The proposed buildings and works are low of scale and a reasonable outcome for the site in the Industrial 3 zone and in the context of the creek. No objections were received from internal or external referral authorities. and the proposal will not unreasonably impact the amenity of the local community and environment, provided that conditions relating to the use, amenity impacts including noise, storm and wastewater mitigation measures, as well as environmental management, are implemented by conditions of approval. The approval of this permit application would result in the creation of 4 full-time staff and locally recover and reuse materials that would otherwise be diverted to landfill or facilities further away. Accordingly, it is recommended to support the proposal and issue a notice of decision to issue a planning permit subject to conditions. I also note the amended officer's recommendation, as we need to make 2 minor administrative fixes to the recommendation. Part 1 is to update the numbering within conditions number 19A and 19B to correctly refer to the condition 18 instead of condition 20. And part 2 is to update the table at condition 24, because the table as published in the agenda has cut off some of the important information.
Councillors, do you have any questions at this point in time? Councillor Greco?
And thank you, Mayor Williams. I just wanted to get confirmation of the distance of the site from the residential areas. Can you repeat that again, because I think I missed it in transmission?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. Through you, Mayor. The distances are approximately 70 meters from the residential properties to the east and 50 meters from the nearest residential properties to the south.
Thank you.
Councillor Dimitriadis?
I just wanted to ask, the report indicates that the application proposes some deliveries outside of the operating hours. Will this be allowed?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. Through you, Mayor, we will be limiting the hours of operation with no occasional outside deliveries as proposed. So all the deliveries have to happen within the proposed hours of operation as per condition 6 of the planning permit.
Councillor Dimitriadis?
Oh, sorry, I was talking to myself. I just wanted to ask if there were going to be any trees lost due to the, if the application is granted, if the permit is granted.
Thank you, Councillor. Through you, Mayor, the trees will be protected via permit conditions, which we have included in the recommendation. So we would not lose any trees within the vicinity of the site.
Do we have any other questions from councillors to our officers? If there are no further questions, then I will now move on to hear from our submitters. Councillors, we have 8 submitters who would like to address the planning committee this evening. I will call your name out. Please turn on your camera and unmute your microphone, and you will have 3 minutes to speak. I believe we have Esther Hughes from MRA Consulting Group who would like to speak this evening. You have 3 minutes, Esther.
Thank you very much, councillors, Mayor. I'm speaking on behalf of the proponent. Just a little bit of information about what they're planning to do. Drilling mud is dirt and water. Thank you. Drilling mud is dirt and water which has been excavated by hydro excavation. So it's essentially an inert material, very benign. It's a method of preserving infrastructure and potentially tree roots, etc., from damage. And the proposal is to dewater the drilling mud, to take out the water, take out valuable materials such as dirt and sands, and return them back to resource recovery. So overall, it's a good proposal. It assists the environment. it's suitable in the location, and there will be environmental controls in place to ensure that none of the silt or sediment enters the nearby creek. We heard from the responses that it's a very important aspect is to protect the creek. So that's been taken into account. I notice and we agree to restricting the operating hours for the proposal. That was one of our suggestions to help meet the community concerns. So we are okay with that. I also noticed that there is a restriction on truck movements to 10 trucks per day. Because the project, the activities will be project-based, I would like to propose that that is potentially increased. The restriction of 15,000 tonnes per year is enough to restrict truck movements to what would be a reasonable number. Even if we doubled 15 truck movements to 30 truck movements, there would only be one truck every 22 minutes. So I would just encourage you to reconsider that restriction if possible. Overall, I thank you and applaud the planners for their consideration of the proposal, and we look forward to the result of this meeting.
Thank you, Esther. I'll move on to the next submitter this evening. I have Helen. Is Helen available? You can kindly turn on your video.
Yep.
Okay. And you have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you, Helen.
Thank you. I'm speaking on behalf of myself and my husband, and our objection to this proposal centres on zoning, sound and dust and environmental issues, all of which I outlined in my detailed letter to council. I guess our main concern is the site is zoned industrial 3, which is supposed to be a buffer between industry and residential areas, whereby the use is compatible with the local community and does not affect the safety and amenity of our adjacent land use. But this proposal significantly reduces the amenity for myself and my husband and my neighbours. The sound report for the proposed industry states that it would be compatible for the area surveyed. However, the sounds created by the adjacent cement factory is not compatible with light industrial zone and should not have been considered an acceptable benchmark for future proposals in the area. In fact, my last communication with council was back in April 2021, letting me know that that factory was in fact operating without a lawful permit. So to use that site as a benchmark for sound testing, I believe is not applicable, shouldn't be considered. I live approximately 75 metres from the site. So thank you, Councillor Greco, for your consideration. I believe that is far too close to be living beside this type of industry. Our house has double glazing on every window, yet we can still hear the loud vibrations of heavy trucks that enter Abbott Street. And they do so because they back up from the cement factory in the neighbouring street. And the loud, disturbing noises that are created by those trucks, for me, is a traumatic experience. We previously objected to the noises created by Diona, who leased this same site that we're talking about tonight back in 2020. Those trucks came and went day and night, despite whatever the permit was granted. They sat idle outside the site with engines rumbling, causing me unbearable vibrations inside my head, sitting directly opposite the site. And I can't believe that you would consider increasing this number to one truck every 22 minutes. Even the thought of it and the discussions I've had with neighbours causes me to have flashbacks to that tremor that I have in my head from that time when Diona were on the site. So I can't believe the council would consider this proposal. A sound barrier would do nothing to mitigate the heavy trucks on Abbott Street. And I believe that the site isn't compatible with the zoning that it should be. I can see my time's run out.
Yes, your time has run out. Thank you. I'll move on to the next person. I have Gwenda that's up this evening. Gwenda, can you kindly turn your video on? Is Gwenda there? I can see that she's there. Yep. Gwenda, you have 3 minutes to speak to address your concerns to the planning committee.
Okay, thank you very much, Mayor. Thank you again to the planning committee for the opportunity to speak. We oppose the, start my video. We oppose the development and we've provided a written submission which makes our case in detail. I just wanted to talk about 2 particular issues tonight, given the very limited time we have. The first one related to the occasional after-hours delivery clause, and I'm very pleased to hear Councillor Dimitriadis has already sort of addressed that, and also that the proponent has actually appeared to have modified their claims in that regard. So that's terrific, really appreciate that. But I would also emphasise that it's still very important for council to make sure that if they do agree to this proposal, that the licensing provisions are extremely tight and there's no opportunity for any ambiguity in this space. So I'll leave that one with you. You know, and you need to really be very clear about the licensing provisions, that the roles and responsibilities are clear, who's responsible for what, and that it doesn't fall on citizens, people living in the neighbourhood, to actually have to complain about the non-compliance or what is unreasonable behaviour, which is not our job as citizens of the community. So I hope that you're able to do that. So that was kind of my first point about making sure that the licensing arrangements are extremely robust and there's no ambiguities. There's nowhere that anybody can fudge anything. The second issue that I wanted to speak about tonight is to ask the council, it goes to the point that Helen Moore was making, it goes that we ask council to give weight to the lived experience of what the noise is like in this precinct, as opposed to the theoretically derived measurements. So, as you know, much of the negative commentary revolves around anticipated noise impacts should a permit be granted. And I have to say that it is very easy for statistics to be put ahead of people's lived experiences. So in the application, the acoustic report measured individual noise levels in relation to excavator, the crushing and the trucks arriving, delivering and departing. And the consultants measured individual decibel levels in relation to these things at various points around the precincts. So I would say that while they actually measured those decibels, we as residents have no choice but to live with the compounding total noise impacts. So we ask council to give priority consideration to these total noise impacts.
Your time's over, Gwenda. Thank you.
Good.
I'll move on to Gina. Is Gina there? I can't see Gina. The fact that Gina doesn't seem to be there, I'll move on past Gina and I'll see is Harry there? Harry, I see that your name is there. Harry? Okay, Harry, you've got 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you, councillors. Could you please note that there were 14 significant submissions, all opposing this particular proposal. And you may also wish to know that the plant has already been constructed illegally without permits, and it took community action to stop the plant from operating illegally. The planning process was retrospectively initiated, giving us absolutely no confidence in this particular business. As already, I'd like to reiterate that we are dealing with an industrial 3 zone which is the buffer zone between industry and local residents. How council can approve this kind of industry in this zone, I find quite unbelievable. Being within 60 metres of houses and within 130 metres of our house directly down Darebin Creek. As identified by their consultants, the plan is a source of very significant noise and vibration, requiring an acoustic wall on the Darebin Creek site. This will do absolutely nothing to prevent noise from funneling down the creek, as this is currently the case. In fact, it is likely to make it worse. The impacts directly, this impacts directly on our and our neighbour's property. We, in fact, look directly at the plant from our home on Darebin Creek. Further, the continuous and endless noise of reversing trucks with their beeping is already a major noise issue during the day and particularly at night and early morning, as has already been mentioned. Proposed additional truck movements even closer to residents will frankly become unbearable. Noise and vibration are the key issues, and we have absolutely no confidence that these have been properly assessed or considered by the council planners. As this industrial plant will operate, as this industrial plant will be very noisy with dumping of waste, truck noise, the use of heavy pumps and vibrating equipment. I think finally, it's also high time that our council lives up to its motto, Darebin, a place to live, and take action to improve the living environment of its long-suffering ratepayers, residents in this particular area. The proposed plant is inappropriately located. It detracts even more from the existing industrial plants from our local environment. And in our view, the permit applications should be rejected on grounds of inappropriate zoning, excessive noise and vibration, and high impact on local residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Harry. I'll go over to the next submitter this evening. I have Kathy. Is Kathy available? I see that Kathy's there. Kathy, you do. You there, Kathy? Kathy Friday, yep. Kathy, you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Hello?
We can hear you now. We'll have to restart the clock if that's okay.
Yes, I've got Gina Dorita here as well from next door. So we're both here.
Okay,
So
no problem. Thank you.
Gina's going to go first.
Thank you for the opportunity to voice my objection. My written objection provides comprehensive details of the reasons why I am objecting, namely noise and dust pollution, the incongruous nature of the proposed use of the site in an area zoned as a light industrial zone 3 and the environmental impact. Today, I would like to focus on noise and dust pollution and zoning issues. I live at 14 Smith Street, Alphington, in a weatherboard home with single glazed windows. My property is 50 metres away from the proposed site. Directly behind my house is a car park, and opposite the car park is the entrance to the site in question. I do not have any protection from noise and dust, and I am one of the closest residents to the proposed works. The trees that I have planted on the fence line do not afford much protection from noise levels that are currently experienced from the 2 concrete factories, and they are further away than the site in question. In addition, no noise barrier is proposed to be built on the south side. I dispute the applicant's view that, and I quote, there is minimal potential to generate noise. The nature of the work that will be carried out at the site involves the use of heavy industrial machinery and vibrating machines, operating 11 hours a day and 6 hours on Saturdays. Tipping trucks entering and leaving the site and the associated noise that these will generate will have a significant noise impact. Given the close proximity of the site to my property, the noise will definitely carry and will adversely impact on my rights to quiet enjoyment and those of other residents affected. I have a chronic medical condition, and as a consequence, I am home most of the time. This is not acceptable. Tipping trucks delivering and unloading waste material will generate significant dust, as will the nature of the works being carried out. The amount of airborne dust pollution will hinder the operation and effectiveness of the solar panels I have installed on the second story of my home and those of my neighbours, and will generate the accumulation of dust on windows. In terms of zoning issues, the proposed site of the facility is in an area of Alphington zoned as light industrial. The facility is a heavy industry. It involves large-scale undertakings and big equipment versus light industry or production that is small-scale and can be completed in warehouses or factories. Light industrial zone is not meant to cause disturbance to residents bordering or in close proximity to the zone. The operations proposed at the site are not compatible with light industrial zone 3 principles. The applicant states that the local precinct contains similar activities to the proposed use, including a number of processing and manufacturing facilities. The Piave and Excel concrete plants should not be the benchmark to allow further heavy industry to operate in a light industrial zone 3. These factories have operated by historical advantage only. In conclusion, I urge the Planning Committee to seriously consider the impact that the introduction of the proposed facility will have on its residents and the potential it has to setting a precedent for additional heavy industries to move into a zone 3 light industrial classified zone if the proposal is accepted.
Thank you, Gina. I appreciate that. I believe because you were the previous submitter earlier that did not show. So I'll allow Kathy now your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Kathy Friday. I live at number 16 Smith Street, Alphington. Our back fence is 50 metres south of the number 2 Abbott Street, according to the maps in the application. I, like other residents, also consider that the industrial 3 zone is not, it says the definition of the industrial 3 zone is that it be compatible with nearby, allowing industries compatible with nearby communities. And I really can't see how these activities can be compatible with the adjacent neighbourhood residential zone 1. For us in our house, we've got a timber house, and we use it as a workplace, as well as we have a living room on the eastern side. While might get some noise protection from the warehouse, we wouldn't along the eastern side of our house where we have an office, home office and a living room. And I don't accept that vegetation between us and the site would provide any sort of noise attenuation. That's just an assertion that's not based on fact. I guess I was disappointed to see that the application included that there was no threshold distance prescribed for activities like these, while there may not be a distance prescribed, there certainly is a need for where there is no distance prescribed for it to be referred to the EPA, and that seemed to be misrepresented in the application. And I noted that comparable types of activities, noise-making activities, had a 100 to 300 metre buffer between those activities and nearby residences. I consider that the analysis that was done was very narrow and didn't include the biodiversity and aesthetic values that would be affected by the noise, dust and lighting that are detrimental for the habitat values and the neighbourhood amenity along the Darebin Creek. So this would affect fauna, residents and Darebin Trail users. Just finally, I'm pleased to hear that outside of hours work is no longer proposed. I don't accept the rationalisation that we should support this activity because it involves recycling and will avoid material going to landfill, because of course that could happen at some other site and not adjacent not so close to other residences. And I would not accept the limit on the tonnage per year. I'd rather see the number of trucks limited per day, because that's what we'll be affected by.
Thank you. I really appreciate your time and coming this evening to tonight's meeting. I have Robert as the next submitter. Is Robert available? Robert, you have 3 minutes.
Thanks for this opportunity. I live at 6 Smith Street, which is a weatherboard house and single glazed. It's only 75 metres south-southeast from Abbott Street. There's a direct line of sight and consequently sound through minimal foliage between the two properties. I actually went to Abbott Street tonight and could see my house from their gates. Our master bedroom, living room, study and balcony all face to Abbott Street. Critical in this consideration of this approval of the planning permit is the realisation that 2 Abbott Street is in an area designated as Industrial Zone 3. As such, it should not affect the amenity of adjacent land use. We already experience amenity degradation from the Piave cement factory. The fact that Piave is allowed to continue to operate based on grandfathering rules should not be seen as a reason or precedent for ground waste solutions to be equally or more disruptive. Any background noise measurements already undertaken would have included the Piave grandfathered noise. It's also worth noting that there's a qualitative difference between industrial noise and creek noise, the former often being sudden and designed to draw one's attention to potential danger, the latter being continuous and smoothing. Specifically, the noise of the Piave trucks reversing would be replicated by ground waste solutions, adding to the industrial noise we experience. We also fear that ground waste solutions would cause increased noise by the idling of their heavier trucks, the banging of their tail grates on the tip trucks, and the scraping of the excavator on the concrete, all of which we experienced when previous occupants were on the site. Being to the south-southeast, it would be extremely difficult to mitigate these from within the site without blocking vehicle access. Some of this noise would also occur before the trucks enter the site. These would be impossible to mitigate. I was very pleased to hear that the out-of-hours work is no longer sought. I was also surprised to see in the papers I received that during the construction, if there's a problem avoiding tree roots, then the construction engineers don't have to seek permission from council. They just have to notify council that they're going to disrupt tree roots. Surely they should need permission. I'm also concerned about the visual impact, given our direct line of contact, the dust, the vibrations, but I'm going to stick within my 3 minutes and leave it at that. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Robert. I have allowed other people to go a little bit over because I understand how significant this is. I will go on to, I believe we have David. Is David available? I can't see David. If David's not there, then I'll move on to the next person. We have Luke. Is Luke available? Yep, Luke. I can see Luke there. Luke.
Hey, let's go. You cannot start your video because your host has stopped it.
Okay, there you go. You got 3 minutes. Thanks, Luke.
All right. Thank you, councillors and planning committee, for the opportunity to voice my objection. I'm lodging this objection to the planning permit of the waste processing facility planned within 50 metres of the community of Alberton North due to the detrimental pollution impacts it will impose on environmental public health and in direct contradiction of the Darebin Climate Emergency Plan on key direction number 6, fossil fuel divestment. I'm making this objection on behalf of my family, consisting of a 5.5-year-old and a 7-year-old boy, and all the parents of the children of Alphington Primary School who live within this close vicinity. Only one truck every 22 minutes constitutes anywhere from 5,000 to 10,000 truck visits per year and an extensive use of diesel. The EPA confirmed that loud noises impact on health and well-being. Ongoing noise can lead to headaches, increased blood pressure, fatigue, irritability, poorer reading, comprehension and attention in young children, and hearing damage. The noise complaints received from council due to the previous site occupant was made on actual findings rather than these reported projections that heavy industrial usage is not appropriate for that location. The EPA lists 85 decibels as the maximum safe noise exposure per OH&S legislation and is listed in the acoustic report. The on-site machinery will violate this safe noise exposure. More to the point, the proposed acoustic barrel will create an unimpeded noise funnel directly to the residents within our area. The Gmax operating continuously is 87 decibels. The T20 excavator operating continuously is 103 decibels. The constant trucks arriving and departing would be 85 decibels. As for the air pollution, the 5,000 to 10,000 truck visits to our area will emit extreme amounts of carbon dioxide into our atmosphere. The processing of 15,000 tonnes of mining and building waste will emit unacceptable levels of airborne dust and the potential for asbestos to be emitted into the air of our community with a high proportion of young children. And as for the water pollution, the plant is less than 10 metres from wastewater point DAR17, which feeds directly into Darebin Creek and will certainly increase contamination levels into the parkland. The increased environmental pollution so close to my house will impact the physical, emotional and mental health of my family and fellow community members. All users of the Darebin parkland will be impacted by the negative effects of the environmental pollution on the flora and fauna within the parkland. Please do not approve this planning permit for the reasons above. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Luke. Appreciate that. I'll go back to David to see if David's there, as I do not see his name, but I will just double check to give him the opportunity to speak. If David's not there, I will now move on and want to say a big thank you to all our submitters this evening who have attended this virtual meeting and who have spoken. I'll hand it over to councillors. Councillors, do I have a mover for this motion? Councillor Demetriadis.
Mayor, I'd like to raise an alternate motion.
An alternate motion?
I
Sure.
believe it's circulated by Catherine.
Just double check if we can get that up on the screen from our officers. Do our officers have that? I believe there we go. It's up on the screen.
Sorry, Mayor, that's the officer's recommendation. I wanted the alternate motion.
Okay, just wait a moment. Our governance is putting that together. Okay. Now is that your alternative motion, Councillor Demetriadis?
No, sorry, Mayor, the alternate motion is, it was just emailed to everyone at 7:09.
Because I believe there was also another councillor also asking for an amendment or an alternative motion.
Yep, so I'd like to move the alternate motion.
Is this the same one as Councillor Rennie's?
Yes. They're rejecting the recommendation.
Okay. So the alternative motion.
I think Councillor Demetriadis is referring to the one that I requested.
Okay. Councillor Demetriadis, would you like to read that out then?
Sure.
While our officers prepare that and put that on the screen.
So it's the alternate recommendation is that the council does not support planning application D 530-20232 on the following grounds: that the use and development would result in unacceptable adverse amenity impacts to the nearby creek and residential areas, resulting from disturbance and emissions associated with traffic, light spill, noise and vibration and dust, contrary to the direction of clause 13 of the Environment Risks and Amenity, clause 22.04/3, industrial and commercial activity, and clause 33.03, industrial 3 zone of the Darebin planning scheme.
Thank you, Councillor Demetriadis. Do I have a seconder for that item? Councillor Rennie. Thank you. Councillor Demetriadis, would you like to speak on that item?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Firstly, I wanted to thank all the residents for their submissions and sending us emails about your concerns. I've listened to your concerns and read your objections about this proposal at 2 Abbott Street, and things such as excessive loud noise, traffic congestion, polluting of the Darebin Creek and other environmental impacts are quite concerning. And so therefore I'll be voting, raised this alternate recommendation and voting against the recommendation to grant the permit. And I think this heavy industrial area that's been proposed is a huge concern for the Alphington North area. So I've put up this alternate recommendation to support our residents and all those issues mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Demetriadis. Councillor Rennie.
Thank you, Mayor Williams. I'll keep it very brief, just to say that Industrial Zone 3 is to provide a buffer between Industrial 1 zone or Industrial 2 zone and local communities, which allows for industries and associated uses compatible with nearby community. I think we've heard clearly from our community tonight that this is not a use that is compatible, and for that reason I'll support this alternate recommendation that I requested from staff.
Thank you, Councillor Rennie. Any other councillors would like to speak on this alternative recommendation that's been put up on our screen this evening? Councillor Hannan, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, this is a really difficult one. I sincerely respect the motion which Councillor Rennie has requested and Councillor Demetriadis has put forward. And I really thank the residents, and I hear their concerns for their amenity, as you would if you live nearby. And I imagine, we all live in the streets and we have things around us, and we want to protect the amenity of our streets. The reason I'm not supportive of this is because on these kind of issues, I do take advice from the specialists in the area. Noise is a particularly complex phenomenon to measure and to predict. It has been assessed, and we're not talking about the noise at the location. We're talking about the noise at the site of the sensitive receptor, which is the nearest ones are 50 to 75 metres away, and there are buildings in between. I know it's also about the truck use, and I think that there are measures to deal with that. I would say that recycling of heavy materials is not glamorous in any way, but it does support the environment in terms of reduced landfill and recycling of materials, and it does create jobs in our municipality. So I think that there is a pretty strong set of conditions that have been put in place by the staff on this permit, and I would take the expert advice on those, while certainly would want to see some pretty close monitoring to address the amenity concerns that that residents have raised. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hannan. Any other councillors? I think I'd just like to make the mention that it's unusual that we have these type of applications that come to council, and I've measured this from a different perspective of if I was to live nearby it. This is not an issue that something will be built and it's over and done with the matter of, a year, 2 years. This is a business that will be running 11 hours a day, 6 days a week. I think if I knew that business was running and I moved into the area, I knew what I'd be up for. But for a business to come in nearby my home and hear the vibration and the dust and all the other issues and concerns that having a business just come into my world that I would be not anticipating, I feel would definitely rock my world, especially 11 hours a day, 6 days a week. And I am also happy to vote for the alternative motion. So I'm going to ask councillors if they would like to vote for this item, the alternative motion, put this item to vote. All those in favour? I have Councillor Newton, Councillor Lawrence, Councillor Demetriadis, Councillor Rennie, Councillor McCarthy, Councillor Greco and Councillor Williams. All those against? I have Councillor Hannan. That item has been refused this evening and we have an alternative motion. So we have refused to grant a planning permit. The Planning Committee has decided not to support the application and issue of a refusal to grant a planning permit on the grounds. The applicant and the objectors will be notified in writing and the applicant can appeal the decision at VCAT. The process of the appeal is subject to time refrains detailed on the documentation. So thank you to those submitters and to the objector, and also to our officers and councillors on this one. We'll move over to the next agenda item that we have this evening, which is 9 to 15 Kilmore Avenue, Reservoir. Over to our officers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Mayor and councillors. This is an application in relation to 9 to 15 Kilmore Avenue Reservoir for the construction of 14 double-storey dwellings and a reduction in the resident car parking requirement. A permit is required to reduce the car parking requirement by 10 spaces for 10 of the 3-bedroom dwellings. At a minimum, all dwellings will be provided with 1 car parking space. Additionally, 8 covered residential bicycle parking spaces are provided and 4 visitor bicycle spaces are provided on the site. 15 objections in total were received against this application. It's recommended to issue a notice of decision to grant a planning permit subject to conditions, as the proposal is a high quality design, provides adequate car parking considering the well-serviced location of the subject site, and provides an excellent response to the amenity standards of the Darebin planning scheme. Thank you.
Thank you to our officers. Councillors, do you have any questions in reference to this item? If we have no questions from our councillors, we do have some submitters this evening. Therefore, I will be asking for those submitters to come up and they have 3 minutes to speak. This evening, I have 4 submitters, so I will be asking for Suka, who's our first submitter this evening. So if you'd like to please turn on your camera and you can speak 3 minutes.
Good evening, councillors. Apologies, my camera's permissions aren't allowing me to put my screen on. Oh, I'll start now. Sorry. Good evening. My name is Susuka, town planner from CK Roos Architects. Before you tonight, in our opinion, is a model outcome showing the benefit of council collaboration. The original application in 2020 proposed attached dwellings in a block arrangement with 2 long crossovers and driveways servicing each townhouse. Following advertising, concerns were raised generally around traffic, safety, neighbourhood character and amenity. to which in that design we satisfied all of clause 5206. Whilst numerical standards of clause 55 were achieved in the previous layout, upon reflection, they represented a missed opportunity. A 4-lot consolidation was a chance to do something meaningful. At the forefront of the redesign was the goal to provide additional housing in a way congruent with the good design guidelines and in a way that factored the car ownership rate in Darebin. By decoupling cars, which is an often challenging proposition for developers, and allocating one car space to each dwelling, we are able to use one crossover over 4 lots. This generated an additional on-street car parking spaces and is regarded as a positive contribution. By creating a separate walkway and central communal area, we can champion safety and connection. With the massing before you today, we can, on balance, maintain adjoining amenity, provide a strong landscape setting, and provide a greater internal offering to future occupants. This redesign commits to a 7-star NATAS rating and represents the type of developments we should be encouraging in Darebin. The site sits within a residential area flagged for incremental change. Located in the PPTN and within walkable catchment of the Summerhill shopping precinct, it is ideal in its candidacy for additional quality housing. Thank you for your time tonight, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Sue. Appreciate your time. We'll move over to the next submitter that we have this evening. I have Josh on the list. Is Josh available? Josh, you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor, and thank you to all of the councillors for taking time this evening to listen to us. I guess my written submission is based on 2 major kind of grounds. One, I note, having had a brief chance to try and read the agenda, is around safety, which is not a factor to be considered, so I'll ignore that. My other major concern is around the parking reduction. I have no kind of qualms or problems with the idea that the street and the neighbourhood will be developed. I think that's a good thing. However, I just find the reduction of parking from 26 down to 16 to be over the top, and the basis that parking report that was formed part of the application is made on is old census data, 2016 census data. My year 8 students at school know that we have a census every 5 years, and they would be able to tell you that there's more recent data, which indeed shows a growth in car ownership and car usage. And in fact, excuse me, households with 2 cars growing from 40% to 55%. So the exception that they're seeking by such a vast number, to me, is just stretching it too far, is essentially my concern. The parking report suggests that the street can cope, I guess, is one way to put it. And I do welcome the changes to the crossover to increase 1 extra parking space. I think that's a good thing. But they suggest that the street can cope. And I guess my argument there is, why should this particular development receive the benefit of soaking up any extra capacity that the street may have? And I don't necessarily agree with what is in that parking report about the vacancy of the street. I think it's exaggerated and perhaps aerial photography taken during business hours. But if indeed it is true that there is space in the street, I think it is unfair that one particular development gets to absorb 10 spaces worth of that capacity, because the next person who may wish to develop their property in that street will perhaps be met with, well, there's no more capacity in the street anymore. And so I guess, if we have a planning scheme that suggests 26 parking spaces is appropriate, then, maybe this street can accommodate some reduction in that, I guess I would say that, maybe we consider not just this application, but future applications, and give this particular plan, some reduction, but not such a drastic reduction of only providing 61% of what the scheme suggests should be in place for this particular development.
Thank you, Josh. Appreciate your time. The next submitter I have this evening is Angela. Is Angela available? Angela, you have 3 minutes.
Hi there. My name's, can you hear me?
We certainly can.
Okay, I'm trying to start the video, but it won't let me start my video. Here we go. My name's Anthony Mavrikas. I live at 16 Kyneton Avenue, and I'm speaking on behalf of Angela Johnson and John Taylor at 18 Kyneton Avenue. Both of our properties are directly over the back fence of the proposed development. Yeah, basically, start my video.
Can we just, excellent. Keep going. Sorry.
Did you hear all that? Do you want me to repeat?
Yep. No, we heard all that. We just didn't see your face.
Yeah, no worries. I thought it'd just be better if we all put everything into one condensed report for you. So anyway, basically, the development that they're proposing will increase housing over density in the area. For example, in the area, in a 2.5 kilometre square vicinity, there's less than half a dozen unit developments, and the proposal will be out of character for the area. This will increase the number of on-street car parking for residents and visitors, multiplied by 14 units. More cars on the street increases the difficulty of waste collection and any other trucks or big vehicles that want to get down the area for any sort of delivery. Surrounding areas are predominantly single-storey dwellings, and the proposed development will be a bulk double-storey development out of characteristic with the area. The new development poses a visual impact on adjoining neighbours and houses, including overshadowing, a loss of solar access, and open sky views when you basically walk out your back door. The original plan was much more spacious and an open design, was set back off the rear boundaries to respect adjoining neighbours. And this new design is basically a big block-shaped development with a much more severe and hard-faced construction closer to the boundary. I'm basically going to walk out my back door and we're going to have 4 blocks of concrete wall. Yeah, so none of us here want that. The proposal has been poorly designed as it doesn't make best use of the available north-facing sunlight. Yeah, we're going to have a bit of shadowing at the end of the day, and yeah, basically, yeah, nobody around here wants to have a big concrete wall. The proposal is not in keeping with the existing predominantly single-storey character of the area, and I would suggest that the council take the time to take a site visit for themselves and have a look at the existing stock and character of the area. Basically, it's completely going against the streetscape of the area. We've got a lot of basically single-storey dwellings, and I know that some of these developments are happening, but when you're doing 14 townhouses over 4 blocks, it's huge. It's just massive. So basically, in conclusion, this development is not in keeping in with the area, and if approved, will set a precedent. This precedent will implement spot characteristics not in keeping with the existing street and council's urban character study.
Your time's up now, Angela. You've gone 40 seconds over, but thank you.
It's Anthony. But anyway, thank you.
Oh, sorry. My
Angela's
apologies.
here, and I'm speaking on everyone's behalf.
All right. Thank you very much. I have Anthony also on the agenda. Is Anthony available?
Yeah, that's me. I just spoke for the 3 of us.
My apologies.
No, you're right.
Time, and I apologise. So if you want to just continue on what you were saying, I'll give you a minute or two.
Yeah, no, that's all right. Look, basically, that's the long and the short of it. Sorry, I thought I explained it so you knew what was going on. I live next door at number 16, and John and Ange live at 18, and both of our houses are basically over the back fence. And yeah, the original plans were actually better than this, but the problem is that you got this giant structure. I actually did a renovation and to the existing house. So we did a renovation to our house where we kept the house basically all the same. It's a gabled house. We extended backwards, and all of my back windows, all my natural light is coming in my back window. And if this goes ahead, I've basically got close to 7 meters tall of building that's going to be spanning right over 4 blocks. I won't be able to see the sky unless I walk a meter onto my back deck. And look, basically, I bought a house in a suburb where there's houses, and I didn't want to move into a block of flats, which, you know, now I've got 4 neighbours over my back fence, and the proposal's for 14 times 2 for cars. So I know that they just want, the lady from the architect was saying about how they're just planning for 1 car because you're trying to get down on cars. But let's face it, everybody's got a car. So you're going to have 1 car per spot inside the development, and then you're going to have 1 car per spot out in the street, plus everyone else that lives there, plus your friends and family and neighbours. So basically, yeah, look, thanks for your time. I appreciate everything. We're just not too happy with the designs that have been submitted. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time, and apologies for not understanding that it was
That's all right.
together. Thank you. I'll go over to councillors. So that's all our submitters for this evening. Councillors, do I have a motion, or councillors would like to put up a motion in reference to this item? Councillor Rennie?
Thank you, Mayor Williams. I'll move the officer's recommendation.
Second.
I have Councillor Newton as the seconder. Councillor Rennie, would you like to speak on the item?
Thank you, Mayor Williams. Firstly, I'd like to thank all the submitters for taking the time to come and express their concerns and provide us with their insight into how the development may impact on the amenity in the local area. I've given this one quite a lot of thought, and in particular, I'm aware of the significant work that our city designer has undertaken and that our planning team have undertaken with the applicant in order to achieve some changes which I think really improve the amenity of this property for future residents. And I think that's incredibly important. 14 might sound like a lot, but this is 4 blocks, and I would much prefer this development than the alternate, which is that we get 4 different planning applications, each for 3 or 4 units on a block, which is very typical of what we see in Reservoir, and that we end up with a kind of dog's breakfast of 4 different developments with 3 or 4 units each with driveways all over them. I think there are some real benefits to what's been done here, which is to consolidate the car parking and create much greater and more usable green open spaces within the development. That's what builds community. So to my colleagues who may be weighing up, and to community members who might be thinking we don't like this plan or this density, if these 4 blocks were separate and we had 4 separate planning applications, every one of them would have a big driveway down the side, they'd have a series of townhouses, and there'd be no continuity or congruence between the development. I think that this development will be of high quality. I think will be highly regarded by people who'd like to live there in the future. And I appreciate the work that the developer has been willing to do in coming to the party and making changes that were recommended. I hope that my colleagues will support this, because I think that it's really difficult to ask developers to make the sort of magnitude of changes which council has suggested they make, and to get this improvement in design that meets our council's good design guides for this type of development, and then to reject it at this stage. And so out of respect for the process that's been undertaken and for the quality of the development that I think has been proposed, I suggest that we approve this application tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rennie. Councillor Newton?
Thank you. One sec. Yep. Yeah, so I support the officer's recommendation. I definitely hear what the objectors are saying. But personally, I have lived quite close to this development in North Road without a car. And I do think that it's actually not bad in terms of public transport service. So there is Reservoir Station, but there's also the tram fairly close. And I agree with Councillor Rennie that I think the developers have really come to the table in terms of quite a sensitive design. And I think this is somewhere that I would very happily live in. And I hope that that's the case for the people that choose to live here in future.
Thank you, Councillor Newton. Any other councillors would like to speak on the officer's recommendation in front of us? If there are no further speakers from councillors, then I'll put the item to vote. All those in favour? I have Councillor Rennie, Councillor McCarthy, Councillor Newton, Councillor Hannan and Councillor Lawrence. All those against? Councillor Williams, Councillor Greco, and those abstaining? Councillor Demetriadis. That item has been carried. So a decision of notice to grant a planning permit. The Planning Committee has decided to support the application and issue a notice of decision to grant a planning permit subject to conditions. This decision is not final and an objector can appeal the decision, and the applicant can appeal at any time at any condition at VCAT. The process of appeal is subject to timeframes detailed on the documentation to be sent to the objector and the applicant. So where officers a recommendation, I'm going to say that we do not have any other businesses. Are there any other businesses or general planning information that is scheduled for the VCAT application? I don't have any other considerations this evening. So I'm now going to call this meeting closed at 7:47 this evening, and like to say thank you to all our submitters and councillors and our officers who have attended this evening. Thank you.
Mayor, sorry, I think we need to approve the, we just need to note the VCAT one. So I'm happy to move the officer recommendation that information be noted.
Oh, my apologies. Okay, so the other business items is that general business in reference to the scheduled VCAT application. So do I have a mover for that item? Councillor Rennie, do I have a seconder?
I'm happy to second.
Councillor Greco. All those in favour? That's been carried unanimously. Thank you. We do not have any other confidential matters to discuss. And that's it. Close of business, guys. Thank you. 7:48 close.
Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. My apologies on that one.